Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning to everyone.
Salam. Good morning, Prof.
How are you, everyone? How is everyone doing today? How's your semester going? Anyone get a vaccine shot recently? No?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Still waiting.
Are you still waiting? Anyone scheduled for vaccines? No?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I'm scheduled on July 20th, so I still have a ways to go to wait, but at least I got an appointment, so okay, so I see people coming online now. Let's just start. So we are going to continue today with our discussion on implementation of thanks, Dean, thanks for the congratulations. Inshallah, hopefully it'll be good and there won't be too many side effects. So we just try lah. Nabila, did you want to say something? I saw your little screen lit up, but then it's mute. You're muted, so I didn't hear you.
No, it was just my iPad. It was saying something.
Oh, okay. Technical glitch. Okay. Today we'll continue with our discussion on evaluation, so implementation of programs. And just to let you guys know, I know you've been working really hard. So I appreciate the work you've put into the class this semester so far. So from here on out, I won't be giving any more homework assignments out of class. So whatever we do, it'll be done in class during class time. So give you guys kind of a break on that. And I'm unfortunately, I'm still not done with your assignment ones. I'm getting through it slowly, but I think part of the problem is I gave actually between my 3 classes this semester, I gave too many assignments. And so I'm having a hard time getting through marking them all, in addition to all the other responsibilities that we have. So I apologize for the delay in getting your marks back, but I've gone through probably about half of them by now, and so far they're quite good. I'm very impressed with your work so far. So thank you for that. Yeah, so let me just let's just go to some housekeeping issues first. I'm just gonna go to Puja Blast. No, that's not Puja Blast. There it is. Okay. So today's class. Hold on a second. Okay, so today's class. Yeah, so just an announcement about the final exam. Okay, so please mark your calendars. Our final exam date has been given to us by the faculty, and it'll be on Monday, 12th July, from 11:30 to 1:30, online, obviously, online format. In the coming weeks, maybe next week, I'll give you a heads up on what to expect and what to study for the exam, okay, and the format and all that. All right, but I'll just say this: since the final exam is going to cover everything we've done since the first exam, so I won't include the first 3 or 4 weeks material in the final exam. A lot of the questions have to do with, because since you guys are HRD students, we really want to focus on community development program implementation, because that's, I think, the most relevant topic in relation to your HRD program. And the other topics relate to that main topic in a lot of ways. Okay, so there's several questions on implementation. Okay, so last week's class and this week's class on evaluation are important, you know, and then also the previous material on, you know, writing objectives and situational analysis and all that. So these few classes are quite important for the final. Okay, just to let you know, give you a heads up on that. But I will go into more detail, inshallah, in the coming weeks. And I think next week I'll probably give an overview of the exam for you. Okay. It'll be online, open everything, open source, including open cameras. So I'll finally get to see everyone's faces at the same time on the final exam. It's never too late, right? Okay. We're going to start class today again with another poll like we did last week. It helps me to better understand you guys, my students. And I hope it helps you guys a little bit to get to know yourselves better. As I mentioned, that's the goal for doing it, but it's also kind of fun. So I'll do that in a minute. We'll get to the Mentimeter poll. So today's lecture will just be finishing up the evaluation part. We got through about half of it last week. And so we'll continue with the second part of evaluation. And then the second half of the class, and we probably won't use the full 3 hours today. You'll probably get to go a little bit early today. Yeah, we're gonna do an in-class small group exercise. Okay, so no homework, we'll do it in class. And I'm sharing this case study with you. Okay, so this is a case study, a real case study from Indonesia on a poverty eradication program by the Asian Development Bank. So it's called Slum Upgrading Project. It's very short. It's only about 2-3 pages. And so I'm going to put you into small groups and ask you to reflect on these questions here related to evaluation. Okay. So you're going to have to read through the lines a little bit because there's not a lot of content in the actual description of the case study. So that's why I wanted to do it in a small group so you guys can really discuss on, what are some of the strategies that you would use to address these questions about evaluation. Okay, and then the groups, after that, each of you can report out very briefly on your findings, okay? So that's the agenda for today. Any questions or concerns anyone have about anything? Assignments, content, anything at all?
So far, I think no, Prof.
Okay, clear? Oh, here's a question in the chat box. Oh, no, Prof. Okay, thanks, Shazuna. All right, so let's roll on with our Mentimeter poll. All right, so today's poll, let me just open it up. Okay, so today's poll is a little bit personal, but I'm going to answer this too. So there's the 5-6 questions. These are like, you have to use the slider thing here. Okay, so the COVID pandemic has made me question several things, or has it? That's the question I'm asking. Okay, so to what extent has the COVID pandemic made you question your future, made you question your faith, made you question your psychological health, your sanity, made you question your physical health, made you question your government and your leaders, made you question your personal relationships? Okay, so take a minute, go ahead, read through, think about it a little bit. And then you can sign on using the code at the top, and let's have a look. I'm gonna do it too. Okay, we've got 12 so far. Anyone else want to share? Siapa lagi? Siapa lagi? Interesting. $14. Anyone else want to go? Are you guys still thinking? I know these are deep questions, right? So maybe you need to think about it a while. No, no one else? Oh, there's one more. Oh, there's a few more. Oh, here they come now. All right. Interesting. Okay, got 20. Okay, well, while maybe there's a few more that want to submit, and you can go ahead and do that. In the meantime, I just want to ask a few questions. So this is really interesting. So the highest rated score was future. So in what ways has the pandemic made you question your future? Anyone want to share? Very interested to hear what you have to say. Anyone? What aspects of your future has the pandemic forced you to question? In what way? Ajana.
Prof.
Yeah.
I think it is because we know that there are unemployed individuals out there,
Okay.
and we will be fresh graduates later, and
I see.
yeah, we have no experiences. We have so we need to compete with a lot of with a lot of people, and we don't know what will happen to us.
Right. Okay, so it's made you sort of uncertain as to whether you think you'll be able to secure a job after you graduate because of the
Yep.
rise. I see. Okay, because of the rise of unemployment. And so that means that you're competing with more people, and yeah, there's maybe less jobs to choose from and so forth. Okay. Yeah, that's very real. Very real. Anybody else have anything different or anything else you want to add to that about your future? I would imagine that that can cause some anxiety, right? Some stress. And so it might also have a residual effect on your psychological health, your sanity, I assume, right? So the second highest score was government and leaders. So what aspect of that, what have you questioned in terms of your government, your leaders? I mean, generally speaking, we don't have to get into politics, but just in general, in what ways has it forced you to question your leaders?
Yes, Prof. As for me, I think why I strongly agree that government had me questions that maybe how they handle the COVID-19 right now.
Okay.
Maybe they can come up with other maybe other procedures or maybe new kind of SOP that can, what you call it, that can keep us from this kind of this obstacle right now, maybe I think.
Okay, all
Because
right.
maybe they can also not just copy, maybe they can try to initiate other initiative, maybe try giving what you call it, giving like what saya just said, jangan because apa, giving peluang, giving chance for new, maybe newcomers in the industry to work, maybe new job.
Okay, all
Even
right.
though right now it's online, right? So basically, I think maybe right now they can give. I think that's a promise, Prof.
I see. Okay, all right. Thanks, Hadi. Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of people naturally they question, leadership and reaction policies and so forth in reaction to the pandemic. I think that's quite normal. So it's interesting to see you guys as young people also thinking along those lines as well. I think it makes sense. It's normal, you know. Yeah, I mean, I have friends and colleagues who are in, overseas in other countries, even, of course, my family in the US and friends in the US. So this is very much a global kind of phenomenon, is that everyone is sort of, reacting to what their leaders are doing. And some people have very strong reactions, they have very strong disagreements, some just think that maybe the direction is wrong or the government is not doing enough, so I mean, it's if you sort of scan what's happening globally, this is quite common phenomenon. So let me ask you guys, what would you do different? Is there anything specific that you would have done differently or you would do differently than the way the government is handling it now? Are there any specific things that you would, different strategy that you would use? Any particular strategies? Who wants to share? Anyone?
Hi, Doctor.
Hi.
As for me, I would look at the statistics,
Okay.
and then I would see which field or which part that contribute to the cases mostly, and then I would
Okay.
shut down that field. Yeah.
I see. That sector, you mean?
Yes, sector.
So, for example, like if it's mostly being spread in factories, you'd close all the factories down. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I see. So you would do more of a targeted approach. Right. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Thanks, Nabila. Anyone else have any suggestions for the government? Well, one of the things that's interesting is that, it's very easy to criticize. It's very easy to be a critic. But it's also difficult to come up with better responses. And I'm not defending any particular, decisions by the government. But it's just a fact that it's very easy to criticize, but to come up with other alternate solutions is hard, especially in something like COVID-19, where we're learning about it every day. We don't, we're sort of learning as we go, so I mean, I think it's, generally speaking, we have to realize and at least give due consideration to the fact that it's hard. It's a difficult position to be in, to make those decisions. And of course, they can always make better decisions. Everybody can always make better decisions. I mean, people, of course, now people are criticizing the vaccine, the rate of the vaccine rollout, right? And how long it took the government to get the vaccines and all that. So yeah, of course, there's things that can always be done better. And again, I'm not defending, I'm just saying that it's important that, because in HRD, leadership is a very important part of HRD. So as HRD people, we should be aware of the fact that, leadership is hard. It's hard, especially in a situation where you don't have a lot of information of how things work, like this pandemic, where, we don't know a lot of things about it. So, but yeah, so my policy is always like, if I'm going to criticize something, then I should have an alternative solution, right? If I can't present an alternative solution, then maybe I shouldn't be criticizing, only because that might not really help, that might not really benefit, right? So, but that's just my personal philosophy, you know. So we should be always thinking about alternatives. What's the better way to do it? What's the better way to do it, right? And even in your practice of HRD, like when you go to work in your organizations, you know, you're going to be doing things like evaluation and research about your, you know, for training and so on and so forth. So think about that. You know, if things are not working in the organization in a certain way, always think about solutions. You know, what can the organization do better, right? And that's what they expect from HRD people. You guys should be solution providers. You know, you guys should have answers for people when things go bad. You know, so if employee comes to you with a problem, you know, try and help them in some way, not just identify what's wrong, but okay, how can we re-strategize? How can we do this better, right? So in HRD, that's the way we should think. You know, we should always think about solutions, right? So okay, good, interesting. So personal relationships, okay, yeah. All right, last question. Which personal relationships are the ones that you questioned mostly? Is it relationships with family, relationships with friends, relationships with, anybody want to share? Which relationships have been the hardest during the pandemic? Is it family because everyone's locked in the same house? Is it friends? Anybody want to share?
For me, it's friends.
Friends. Why, Fikia? Why?
Because it's hard to catch up with our friends.
Oh.
It's hard to reach out to them.
Yeah.
You don't know if they have any problems.
I see. Okay. All right. So you feel alienated from your friends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, that's true for everyone. I mean, yeah, and imagine if we didn't have things like Zoom and social media, and you know, where the only way we could contact them was, you know, by phone calls and writing letters and stuff, like in the old days. You know, so it is, technology in that sense is a blessing, is a great blessing, that we can at least have face-to-face discussion and so forth. Okay, thanks, Vicky. That's interesting. Anyone else? Personal relationships? Want to share? No? Okay. Well, I will stop there. Let me just do something here. Oh, sorry, there's a chat. Oh, sorry. Shaifuddin. Oh. Okay, so Shaifuddin shared, because I don't feel that I learned a lot during COVID. Most of my friends that go intern work from home, they had a hard time to learn. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Dean. That's a great point, because I think a lot of people are having that kind of challenge, learning from home. You know, I don't know why, but it seems I have a sort of guess that even though it's hard for everyone, it might be harder for males. I don't know why. Just observing students, and then even my own kids. I have a teenage son and a teenage daughter, and I look at the difference in terms of the way that they cope with the PKP. And the boys just seem to have a lot harder time engaging and learning during PKP. So yeah, I understand. I know it's a struggle. So anybody have a guess, hypothesis why that might be? Dean, do you know why? Why might males have a harder time with that? And again, it's just a hypothesis. I don't know if it's true, but anybody have any guess as to why that might be? Anyone?
Prof, I think Prof, can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, right. Okay, right. So I think it depends on the mail itself, good Prof, I think, because
Okay.
some mail maybe they can adapt with the changes right now. So I think some of us maybe they cannot adapt, right? So I think the what you call it, the factors of how what you call it, how
It affects them. Yeah.
they have been teach. Yeah, I think the factors of how they have been teach in at home, maybe the
Okay.
parental factors.
Right.
Okay,
So you
I think
don't.
yeah,
So
that's
Hadi,
probably
you
one.
don't think it's anything necessarily about about gender, male, female. You don't think it really matters. It's other factors. You think?
Yeah, I think it's more on the external factors. Yeah, I think.
I
Yeah,
see.
as for me, I think that.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's fine.
Okay,
That's
Prof.
again, like I said, I don't have any real evidence of that. I'm just an observation. So I could be completely wrong, but yeah, of course, personal factors, environmental factors, situation at home with the family. Those are, of course, those are all very important factors. Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing. Stuff it's just worth I think thinking about and looking at. Okay, so let me now let's now shift to our continuation of our lecture from last week. All right, so we're going to continue, as I said, with the evaluation discussion. And of course, evaluation, it's not the most exciting topic. I understand that. But it's important, especially if you're going to be involved in community development programming. It is very important. I think last week I tried to emphasize why, right? Why evaluation is so important. And it's, this is a, very good question that we should be able to answer. So who can tell me why before we start? From last week's discussion, what are some of the reasons why evaluation is so important? Okay, I think I'm gonna have to call on some people. Let's see who's here. I'm gonna call on the people that did the best on their assignment. I'm gonna call on people that did very well on their assignment once. Okay, I'm gonna use that as my criteria. Shazrina, are you there, Shazrina?
Yes, Prof.
Hi.
Hi, Prof.
Shazrina, why do you think evaluation is so important based on our discussion last week? Joanna, Tao?
I think evaluation is important because based on the information, we can know what is the main problem we face during the project we conduct.
Okay.
From there, it can help to improve what's the problems there.
Okay, yeah, of course, that's a very, very important one, is understanding what didn't go so well perhaps in the program and then how to improve the program. Okay, so that's the major reason. That's the major reason. So thank you, Shazrina. So that is what we want to do, is we want to always think about how we can improve our programs for the next time, right? Can anyone think of another reason? That's the major reason. Are there any other reasons that anyone can think of? Farina, you have anything to add to that, Farina? Is Farina there? Farina, are you there, Farina? Okay, she's not there. Jesse, are you there, Jesse?
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other reasons you can think of?
I think so that we know what are the outcomes and we can measure what are the factors that can influence the successness of the program, and then we
Okay.
after that we can measure what are the impact of those factors or indicators.
Okay, all right. So determining impact. So yeah, I like that. That's good. That is definitely one of the things we discussed. Yes, to really look at the impact of the program to see whether the program is really achieving our objectives. Okay, so achieving what we set out to do, right? So what's the point of doing a program if it's not going to achieve the impact that we want to see? Yeah, so yeah, that's a good one. Thank you, Jesse. Let's see, Hadi said, evaluation is there to help us in knowing whether program's objectives have been achieved. Yeah, okay, so that's like what Jesse said. Yep. So yeah, so we have our objectives, we know what we want to achieve, we know what the impact we hope to see is. So evaluation helps us to know that. Okay, are there any others anyone can think of? Any other benefits of doing evaluation? Sarah, do you have anything to say, Sarah? Anything you can think of that might be different? Are you there? Sonia, are you there? She was there before. I don't know what happened to her. She's not there. Okay. Alia? Alia?
Yes, Prof.
Any other things you can think of?
For me, evaluation is important to know the effectiveness of the program.
Yeah.
So that we can make some improvement for the next program in the future.
Sure. Okay.
That's
all right. So you're agreeing with the first reason given. Yeah. Okay. So I was thinking more. So those are all good. I was thinking more in addition to that, also thinking about our stakeholders, especially the funders, right? So most programs have sponsors. And so the sponsors also want to know, of course, whether the program was successful, because they're the ones that are going to decide whether to continue to fund the program next time. Right? So evaluation is, of course, used to feed back to the funders, again, information about the program. Was it successful? Did it have impact? So that the funders can then make decisions about whether they want to continue to fund the program. All right. So that's a really, really important reason that a lot of people, we often forget. Oh, sorry, there's some more chat answers here. So Siang said, evaluation helps us better understand our own situation through the data that is truly reflected. We can better understand the part of ourselves that needs to be improved. Okay. So that's definitely true for those who are facilitating the program. Yeah. You know, to get feedback on the effectiveness of the facilitation. So yeah, it is a form of, actually we call that reflexivity. So that process of being able to reflect back on ourselves is important. Yeah, good answer. Okay, and Jesse, oh, Jesse already got to Jesse. Oh, Sarah, here's Sarah. How about evaluation can help to know the improvement of any program? Yeah, okay, so yeah, so further improvements. All right, good, so let's move on. So step one we covered last week about was the defining the focus of the evaluation. Okay, so step two now, starting this week, is the evidence. Okay, so we have to collect the data to know, right, and to make that judgment, to make that determination as to whether the program achieved the objectives. Okay, so after we've identified what we want to evaluate, how we want to evaluate it, okay, then we think about what data do we want to collect? What evidence do we want to collect to determine whether our program has been effective? Okay, so that's another important consideration when you're doing evaluation. All right, how? Because there's different ways, there's different types of data. And I think we already discussed, we talked about qualitative data, you know, doing interviews and group discussions and observations, right? And then there's also quantitative data. We can do surveys, okay, and stuff like that. So the data are collected similar to the situational analysis, okay? Same type of data, same type of methods are used, like we discussed in the situational analysis. And what that means is that in the beginning of the program, you're going to collect data about what's needed and the situation of the participants to find out where they are, what their needs are, right? That's situational analysis. Then at the end of the program, you're also going to do it again. Okay, you're going to do it again, basically. Okay, so to find out whether the program had its intended effect, right? So serious programs will have both beginning and end, this process of collecting the data. Okay, so the sources of data depends on the objectives, okay? So if the objective is to see the impact of a balanced diet program, for example, among children, therefore you're going to want to collect data not only on the children, but also about the parents. Why? Because, why? Would like to answer that question? You're doing a balanced diet program among children. You want to see if the program is actually helping the children with their diets, leading to healthier outcomes among children. Why would you also include the parents in that evaluation?
Because the parents are the ones who provide food for them.
Right, exactly. I'm just trying to see if you're awake. That's a pretty obvious answer. So yeah, of course, the children don't choose their own diets. They don't go out to the kedai and buy their own food. They have to rely on what their parents give them. So, of course, we also would include the parents, or at least the mother, or whoever's providing the making those decisions on behalf of the child. Okay, so then you're gonna include the participants of the program, collect the data. Okay, now the facilitators depends again on who's involved in the program. So maybe there's a CD worker, a community development worker, who's a program leader, right? There may be others involved. We don't know. It depends on the program. Okay, so if there's social workers involved, if there's government people involved implementing, okay, so whoever is also involved in the program will be part of the evaluation. Okay, so think about evaluation more broadly than just the participants. All right, because again, real evaluation also looks at the process. Okay, so we want to see whether the process of implementation was effective. Okay. So those can also be sources of data. And then lastly could be documents like relevant reports, such as meeting minutes. Maybe there's some observation done of activities, that can also be used as well. Okay, so when you think of sources of data, there's actually quite a lot that we can use to help us evaluate. Okay, so after we've done that data collection, we've analyzed all the evidence of the program's effectiveness. Okay, now we have to, of course, analyze the data, all right, and make a judgment. All right, so we look at the status of the program in terms of where are the participants at, okay, what are the results, in terms of what they've achieved, what they've learned. It depends on what the objectives are, of course. If it's about knowledge, have they acquired the knowledge they're supposed to acquire? If it's about attitude, has their attitude changed? If it's about behavior, is there behavioral change? Okay, so depending on the objectives of the program, you're gonna go and analyze the data. If it's a survey, you'll do some sort of quantitative analysis probably. If it's qualitative, you'll do some qualitative observational analysis. All right. Okay, and then you will analyze the data according to the criteria, right, or the indicators that you're using. So that may be objectives. The program, you may want to analyze it according to program objective. Okay, so objective 1 was to transfer knowledge about healthy diet. So then you might look at your survey data to see whether there was an increase in the amount of knowledge that they acquired. Right. 2 is a behavioral change. Now, after the program's conclusion, the participants are supposed to be eating a healthier diet. Okay, that's one of the objectives of the program. Right. So now you may want to go and interview them and find out what they're eating now as opposed to what they're eating at the beginning of the program. Okay, that's a qualitative sort of analysis to see whether there's a change in actually how they're eating. okay? And then maybe you also want to include the facilitators in that to see whether they observed any changes among the participants, all right, in their eating habits, okay? So there's many ways you can analyze data to make these kinds of decisions, these judgments about whether the program achieved what it set out to, okay? So this is step 3. So we have to crunch all that evidence, all that data, crunch it, and then come up with some kind of judgment or some kind of finding, right, to determine the effectiveness. All right, so here's just an example, balanced diet, okay? So the criterion is participation. Okay, so we just want to look at whether to what extent did the participants participate in the program. Okay, that's the first criteria. First criterion is participation. So the way we can measure participation, we can, of course, count their attendance in meetings, the same way we do in class, okay? We can do a qualitative appraisal to see how active they are, similar to what lecturers do and teachers do. How active is Hadi in the class, you know, and then I give a sort of qualitative description, you know, Hadi's very active. Or I can give Hadi a 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 or whatever it is. I can give it quantitative or qualitative. Okay, and then the third one, give feedback. I can give qualitative feedback. That one would be, you know, sort of qualitative feedback. You know, they participate regularly, but they're not very active. They don't really engage in discussion. They don't really discuss with their fellow participants, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so you can combine, for participation, you can combine different types of indicators, qualitative and quantitative. Analysis and judgment can be done quantitative, as I just mentioned. Okay, so a qualitative criteria could be something like appropriateness. Appropriateness of the program. Was the program appropriate given the problems and the needs of the participants? Okay, was it easy to follow? Was it difficult to follow? You know, was this diet program hard? Was it just really hard for them to follow or not? And why? Okay, qualitative appraisals always look at the question of why. You know, how did it go? How did it happen? What was it like? You know, excuse me. So you describe it, and then of course you want to answer that why question. Yeah, why? So it's according to a mandate of an organization or something like that. Okay, so qualitative appraisals evaluation always looks at things like how and why. And then effectiveness, okay? In terms of the achievement of the objectives. Okay, so what was the impact on income? What was the impact on health? What was the impact on the children's ability to concentrate in school, for example? Like diet has been linked, you know, healthy diets or unhealthy diets are linked to children's, you know, ability to concentrate, for example, right? So maybe there was a change. Maybe you know, maybe the children, after they switched to the healthier diet, maybe they were able to concentrate more in class. Maybe they behave better. They're not so hyperactive and stuff like that. So that would be, you know, you could do a sort of, that would be an observational or a qualitative assessment of that, right? And then of course, there's other ways of measuring effectiveness depending on the type of program. So you can do a lot of quantitative effectiveness measures as well. So impact on income, impact on knowledge, impact on psychological changes, awareness, attitude, etc. So I think those are pretty straightforward. Efficiency. Now this has to do with implementation of the program. So this would be more about process evaluation, evaluating the process of implementation. Okay, was the program implemented according to the duration as planned? So if it was an 8-week program, was it implemented according to that plan? Was it delayed? Was it implemented quicker? How about the ratio of input and output? In other words, how much time was spent going in, and then in terms of the results, was it efficient? You know, in terms of the amount of investment that was made and the output that was received, was it efficient? Okay, so efficiency has to do with implementation. Okay, so that's more along the lines of process evaluation. And then significance. How significant was the program? So this is sort of like, you know, you're going to make a sort of draw a final conclusion about the program. Did it have a significant impact on the community or the organization? All right. Given the amount of resources spent, you know, so for example, maybe the program cost 50,000 ringgit, but all you did was just transfer knowledge, you know, so is that Was that a significant impact? You know, so you have to sort of make a judgment about that. You know, given the amount of inputs, the amount of investment made, was it worth the investment? All right, and was the change that resulted significant? Okay, so these are the kind of things that you have to make judgments about based on the evaluation. Okay, so like number 4, significance really can only be arrived at once you've done both the summative or the outcome evaluation as well as the process evaluation. So you look at the process and then you look at the outcome, you combine all that to come up with this last one about significance. Was it a significant contribution to the community? Okay, so, and then you can really say, and then that takes us to step 4. This is where we really can now report and communicate the findings, okay, the results. All right, and so everybody involved in the program should know, should be privy, and should be known, informed rather, sorry, about the evaluation. Okay, this is not, it shouldn't be like secretive material, you know, like a lot of times like government programs, they don't want the people to know what happened, you know. I don't know why. I don't really see the purpose in that. You know, people have to understand that evaluation is not about, evaluation is not so much about people's, you know, performance or whatever. It's about whether the program achieved what it meant to, what it set out to, and then how can we improve it? Okay, that's really what it's about. So if everyone is made aware of the evaluation, then everybody can, like Dean mentioned before, in your comment, you mentioned about, oh no, sorry, it was Siang, about reflecting back on ourselves. How can we do better? So this by sharing the evaluation with all the stakeholders, everybody can then reflect back on themselves and say, well, what role did I play in this? How could I have done better, etc. Okay, so that we can improve next time. Okay, in terms of reporting, there's many ways of reporting evaluation findings. So there's academic outlets, and there's also non-academic outlets. Okay, so we can, not only we can report back to the stakeholders and then back to the funders as well, right? That one is obvious, but we can also share the findings with the public in different forums. Okay, so there's different ways of doing that. So the reports are channeled to the respective departments or ministries for policy formulation. Okay, so some results need immediate action. Like if we find that there was something that went really, really wrong, you know, or somebody just completely failed at their job, that kind of thing has to be immediately reported so that the ministry or department can take immediate action, right? Or an NGO if it's an NGO. All right, so things like that need to be reported immediately. Others can just be delivered at the conclusion of the program, give the report, presented, etc. So like last time when when UPM, we did our evaluation, we developed the state, Selangor State Youth Policy, and we had to report our findings to the MB, Selangor, and the EXCO for the state. So we went before the MB and we reported the findings, and then we also reported our suggestions for policy formulation. Okay, and so of course they're going to ask a lot of hard questions, ask us a lot of difficult questions about what's, you know, why the results were the way they were and what needs to be improved and all that. Okay, so that's a typical part of the process. Is after you do the evaluation, you've got to report back to the stakeholders, and then they're going to ask a lot of questions because they are the ones that are responsible for it. Okay, so especially in community development programs, because you're dealing with people's lives. Yeah, community is about people's lives. It's often about their livelihoods. It's about their communities, the health and well-being of their communities. So they're going to be very interested in your findings from the evaluations. So we really have to, you know, you have to make sure that you do a good job with that. So some reports are also made for sponsors. Okay, so if there's a sponsor of an event, they also may want to see the report because they want to know whether they should sponsor in the future. Is this a program worth sponsoring? Right. So there needs to be a consideration for the sponsors if you have sponsors. Okay, any questions about that? So that kind of sums up evaluation. So if you follow these 4 steps, And so when we do our case study in a few minutes, you can also follow these 4 steps. Think about how to go about doing it. So those are 4 general steps to evaluation. Now, there are specific models of evaluation, and I'm just going to cover 2 real briefly. And these are a bit more intricate. There's intermediate sort of elements to them. So the these are 2 of the classical models of evaluation in program development. Okay, so we have the Hierarchical Criteria Model by Bennett. Now, of course, these are quite the original model is quite old, as you can see, 1976. But because they're the steps of the model are very generic in the sense that they really they can apply to any program anywhere. They're global in that sense, so they don't change much, even though they originated back in a long time ago. People have made small revisions to it, but it's essentially the models are the same. So this one, it starts with input. So, and it goes all the way up to final outcome. And as you can see there, there's more intermediate steps. Okay, so it provides the evaluator more detail on how to, what to look for, what indicators to look for, how to evaluate, and so forth. Okay, so let's go through this quickly. Okay, so in terms of inputs, all physical and non-physical resources, including human resources. Okay, so your time as the worker is an input. How much time you put into it, how much, even if you spend your own resources and so forth. Okay, so not just physical resources, but non-physical resources also have to be accounted for. Okay, so for example, indicators include things like maintenance, the skills of the participants in using the resources, how the resources are mobilized. Okay, there's a lot of ways to look at resource allocation. All right, and so the inputs are really the prime movers in any program. So what you put into the program is going to really determine what you get out of it. So if you put if an organization just has one CD worker doing everything, right? Obviously, that's not a lot of input for a program, and it's going to really burden that one worker. Okay, so this is the first consideration when it comes to evaluation: is what kind of inputs are being invested into the program. Okay, and then the activities, the actual activities, all right, of evaluation: initiation, implementation, and evaluation. Activities listed in the plan of work, okay, or calendar of activities are used. So you evaluate the actual activities as listed out in the plan of work, all right? And you make some judgments on the activities. Were the activities satisfactory? Were they excellent? Were they unsatisfactory, etc.? Okay, so looking at all the activities that were first planned, and then whether they were carried out, and to what extent were they carried out? Okay, what was the outcome? Okay, so looking at the activities, and then participation. And we talked about participation earlier in the semester. Community development is all about participation, right? So to what extent did the community participate? All right, what was the pattern? You see their pattern of involvement. In what way? How did they participate? What were their roles? Okay, and was it continuous, or was it just just for one activity, or was it continuous, or was it touch and go, seasonal, etc.? Was it part-time? Was it voluntary? What kind of participation was actually took place? Okay, and then reaction. You can actually evaluate the reaction, the responses, and the acceptance of the people involved. Okay, so not only the participants of the program, but also the facilitators, those who are conducting the program. How committed were they? How interested were they? Did they show up every time there was an activity? Right. So what was the rate of response? What was the rate of participation? So you can really judge their reaction. And this is really important because you want to see whether, how is the community reacting to this program? Do they see it? Do they value it? If they value it, they will participate, and they will give that kind of feedback that this is an important program, right? And this is something that we should be involved in, and so on and so forth. So judging the reaction of the community. and the participants and the stakeholders, really. Determining whether there was a change, cognitive and affective change. Okay, so was there, again, level of interest? Was there change in terms of their level of interest? Was there change in terms of their values? Did they acquire new knowledge? Did they acquire new experiences that helped them in some way? Okay, so here is where we begin to measure the change that we see. And then skills change. So did they acquire any new skills? All right, and here it says that skills change is more difficult to measure, right? Because it takes a longer time. Skills take time to develop. So even though you've done in a 6-week program, the skills that you teach in that program, maybe it takes them longer for them to really develop those skills. You know, it may take many months after the program's finished for them to actually develop the skills. You know, so maybe you have a community development program where you're teaching people how to use Microsoft Word. Okay, and so they use it. You know, you deliver the program in those 6 weeks, but then after that, when they're working on their own with it, that's when they really, you know, the skills really begin to develop. Okay, so just measuring the outcome after the 6 weeks may not really be enough to determine whether there's been skills change. So how can we do that? What are some of the ways that we can evaluate a program to see whether there's been a change in skill? Anyone have any suggestions or ideas? In addition to just doing an evaluation at the end of the program to see whether there's been a change of skills, what else can we do to determine whether there's been a change of skills? Anyone have any idea? Vikia, want to say something? No one has any idea? Based on the example I just gave, can you think of how we might be able to evaluate skills change? Gimana? GIE? Any idea?
Skills change, I think it is quite hard to measure because it is not something that can see in a shorter time.
Right.
So maybe skills change can be observed during the process, like carry out formative evaluation.
Okay.
To observe.
Yeah. Good suggestion. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. That is definitely one strategy, is that you can observe during the program, do observational types of evaluation. Which is more a qualitative approach. But nowadays, you know, we have video. You know, you can just take out your handphone and just, assuming, of course, you have to get permission from the participants to do that, to record them. But that is one way. Yep. But in addition to that, given the fact that it takes more time, maybe we need to go back to them 6 months after the program to do a follow-up evaluation. Okay, so this is what we would call pre, post, and then post. So you have, you know, you do maybe like a pre, like, so when the program starts, we do an assessment of their skill level. Then after the 6 weeks, at the end of the program, we do another assessment of their skill level. Okay, and maybe just after that 6 weeks, we'll see a slight increase in their skills, right? So that we won't see a huge change, but we'll see some change. Okay. Then we go back to them 6 months after the program and we give them another survey to find out whether their skills have continued to change. Okay, and so we may find that after that 6 months after the program, their skills really have improved. All right, and so that's another way of doing it, is doing it along. But like you said, G, you can also do the observational will help. But again, because of the time issue, we may need a longer time to evaluate. Okay, so we can do a post evaluation. Okay, so we just have to make sure we keep in touch. We keep in touch with the respondents. Okay, so like in JPPL now, we're trying to do this with our alumni. So the alumni, all the students that have graduated from JPPL. So we're trying to contact the former batches of students to find out how their, career has developed, and we want to know so many things from them. And so we're trying to keep in touch with them. So some of the batches that graduated 5 years, 6 years ago, we have to try and go back and get them to fill in our surveys. And it's hard. It's hard. First of all, we have to locate them. And then second, we have to get them to agree to do it. They're not always willing to do it. Okay, so, but this is part of evaluation work. It's hard work. It is hard work. So you have to go back and get in touch with them. So, and then after the skills change measure, so then we look at the final outcome. Okay, and in this model, the final outcome is just whether there's been whether it's achieved the objectives. So that's the first model, hierarchical process model. Oh, sorry, hierarchical criteria model by Bennett. And then the second one is the famous, very, very famous CIPP model. This is a well-known program evaluation model that's used in, not just in community development, it's used in HRD, it's used for training. Okay, CIPP, maybe you've heard of CIPP. And the originator has a very unique name, Stufflebeam. Okay, Stufflebeam, it's not hard to remember that name, Stufflebeam. Okay, so the CIPP is based on the acronym CIPP, obviously. So C is context. Okay, so just as it says, to see the appropriateness of the program based on the situation of the program. So this is where your situational analysis comes in. Okay, where you really want to see what is the situation of the community or the participants, okay, and determine whether the program that you're proposing is appropriate. Okay, so the context of the program. It's looked at more as from the macro level, not so much at the micro level. Okay, understanding historical background is also important. So part of the situational analysis in the CIPP model is to understand the historical background of the community. Okay, and that's very important. And a lot of times we forget that. We don't think about history. But history explains how we got to where we are today. All right, so if you don't consider history, it's very dangerous because you may repeat the same mistakes of the past, or you may, this is what happens in situations where you have like external or outside people come in and they look at the situation as it is currently and they say, oh, you should do this and you should do this and you should do this. But those external people, they don't know the history of the community. And so maybe because they don't know the history, they're actually proposing something that we know from history doesn't work. Okay, so historical background, it's important to have some idea of the history of a place or of a community when you're doing situational analysis. Okay, so that should be included in the situational analysis. Okay, so that's the context is the C in the CIPP model. And then the I is the input. Okay, so inputs including human resources, activities, the sequence, support services, and budget. So these are all inputs in the CIPP model. So all those things we discussed before. So everything, even the activities that go into the program are considered inputs. And this is more of the micro level. So this is the micro level activities, the micro level inputs, the micro level investments that are made to achieve the program outcome. Okay, so here we make use of calendar activities, okay, and we look at the input-output analysis, okay? And so we can see whether the amount of input that's being put into the program, is it going to really have the kind of output that we want based on what we've found in the context. So we identify the context of the study and the appropriateness of the proposed program, and then we look at the inputs. And we can see whether the inputs are really on par with what we're trying to achieve. All right, and that's the input-output analysis. And the first P is the process. And again, this is referring to the formative evaluation or the process evaluation. Okay, otherwise known as monitoring. All right, so there's different terms for it, as you see there. Formative evaluation, monitoring, process evaluation, operational evaluation. These are all synonyms. They're all referring to that same thing. And here we want to objectify weaknesses and then also predict results. So based on the way it's going, or based on how effective the program appears to be implemented, based on our process evaluation, we can predict what's going to happen. And so here we can actually find remedies for the weaknesses. All right, so this is like action research. Okay, I don't know if you've heard of action research. But by doing this process evaluation, we can identify problems as they arise so that we don't have to wait until the end. Right, so maybe I hire Hadi as my facilitator for an activity. Right, one of the major activities, I go out and I hire Hadi as a consultant to do an activity. But as I'm doing the process of evaluation, I'm observing Hadi, deliver his course on Microsoft Word. I go, whoa, this Hadi guy, he's really not qualified to do this. And the participants are not really responding to him, and many of them have stopped coming. Okay, so I can identify in the content, in the process of doing the program, because I'm doing this process evaluation, I can see that I hired the wrong facilitator. Right, so rather than wait for the program to fail, I tell the program leader, all right, and I say, look, you need to replace this Hadi guy. He's just not doing his job. He's not the right guy for the job. We need to bring in a new facilitator. Okay, so program leader goes, gets a new facilitator. This woman, whoever, is very effective, and the participants start coming back and they start really benefiting, etc. So because I'm doing that process evaluation, I can make changes along the way. Okay, so I can find these remedies as we go along. Okay, but that requires, again, it requires people, either it's internal people or external people, to do this kind of evaluation. And it involves, as it says there, it involves both formal and informal data collection. So it's not all very formal. Sometimes it's just observing, just observing as the process is going along, making informal observations. That's also part of the process. And then the last P in the model is product. So basically, what is the outcome, the final evaluation or the summative evaluation, right? And again, this is, like you guys said earlier, to measure the achievement of the objectives. Effectiveness of the context, input, and process will affect the product evaluation. So if they've done the macro context situational analysis well, we've looked at the inputs to determine whether the inputs really match what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve. We've done a good process evaluation. We've handled any, upcoming problems and weaknesses as we've gone along. Then, inshallah, hopefully the product evaluation will be positive. Okay, we'll get a good evaluation at the end. All right, and we'll see that the program was a success. Okay, so as you can see, if you do it well in the beginning, then at the end, inshallah, you have a good output, you'll have a good result. Okay, so the overall evaluation should look at the 4 aspects of CIPP, not only the last P, not only the product, but along the way, the process. If you don't consider the process, then of course your end product is not going to be very effective. Okay, so these evaluation models are not only important for evaluation, they're also important for showing us the importance of doing a good program in every phase, paying attention to situational analysis, paying attention to the inputs, what kind of investments you make, paying attention to what happens along the way, the activities that you propose, right? The amount of resources you invest, doing that process evaluation, checking in with the participants, having participation from the participants, right? Participation is very important along the way. Okay, all these steps that go into the process will determine the outcome. Okay, so it's a good model for not only evaluating, but also for ensuring that the overall process of carrying out the program is done well. Okay, so it can really help us in that sense. Okay, and the last thing before we break, in terms of our evaluators, right? So I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but you can have internal evaluators, like, I'm one of the staff, that's, I'm from the NGO that's actually doing the program. I can also evaluate, right? As an implementer, as a planner, I can also evaluate, all right? Or the community itself that's involved also in the planning, and maybe they're participating in the program, they can also be involved in the evaluation. Okay, so you can have internal evaluators, okay, those that are internal to the program, involved in the program, they can be part of the evaluation. They can conduct the evaluation. Okay, but there are also negatives to that. Can anybody think, just to wake you up a little bit, can anybody think about what might be some of the drawbacks, masala, perhaps problems related to having internal evaluators? So Pasuma, you're doing a program and you're also evaluating the program. What might be some of the problems there that could arise?
Maybe in terms of bias, Prof?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I think maybe, because sometimes the one that handle the program, he or she, basically he knows the person in charge of the one that evaluate, right? So basically there must be some kind of maybe this kind of problem usually, I think.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Okay,
yeah, that's a big danger, is bias. Especially if your program is getting money from a sponsor, of course, it raises a lot of potential conflicts. Yeah. Farhana said, not in the same opinion, the planners. Farhana, can you elaborate a bit? I don't know what you mean by that. I'm not sure, Tapasti, or what you mean by not in the same opinion. Farhana, no? You don't know? What did you mean? Okay, sure. Shazwani said misunderstanding information from teams. So if you're an internal evaluator, you might misunderstand information, Shazwani?
Ya, Doctor.
Is that what you mean? If you're an internal evaluator, there might be misunderstanding from the team.
Yes.
Why might that be? Why would that be?
Because, like, for example, some people say need to do other tasks, but other person will have other belief. Like during this ODL, people have many misunderstand because it's hard to communicate.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, that's possible. Okay, all right. Anyone else? So there could be some, but I think in terms of an evaluation, well, that's an interesting. I haven't thought of that. I didn't think of that. Conflicting opinions.
Prof, I want to add regarding the internal evaluation. I think it can create sometimes it may create a problems when, for example, like the I want to say like the AJK program, the AJK of the program, and then when they giving comment on the other units of the program, so it seems like they are judging each other. So sometimes if the people they don't want to accept the comments or feedback, so it can create problems.
Yeah. I think that's what, okay. So I think maybe that's what Shazwani was referring to. So yeah, excellent point. It requires people to feel like maybe they're passing judgment on their colleagues, or and then that can result in bias, like Hadi said. That's another form of bias. There's a threat of bias there. Okay, so so very good point. Farhana said conflicting opinions, other people want to do like this, but this thing. Yeah, well, it's true. The outcome of the evaluation, if it's done solely internally, it can result in some conflicting opinions, and so that's true too. Yeah. And then if there's no one external to the evaluation, there may be no one to resolve those conflicts. So yeah, so there's some danger definitely there in internal evaluation. Okay. But there are also, as you can see on the slide, there's also advantages in the sense that they know the program best, right? And so if they're really committed to evaluation, you know, like, hey guys, you know, we really need to evaluate our program to see what we did well, what we didn't do so well, so we can improve it for next time. If they have a really honest and a really committed approach to evaluation, you know, it can be done. There's, of course, there'll be issues of bias, but they can sort of try to regulate those issues of bias. Okay, because the advantage there is that they know the program best. You know, they're the ones that are in, you know, from A to Z, they know it. But like it says here, most of you touched on this, the bias, yeah? It's a danger for sure. Okay, now externally, so external evaluators could be consultants. So anybody that comes from outside the program, they don't have to be formal consultants. They can just be even, of course, it depends on the type of program, but they can be from the government, they could be from private, doesn't matter. But as long as they're external to the program, in other words, they're not a stakeholder in the program. You know, they have no attachment to the program. They have no vested interest in the program. They're not a sponsor of the program. They're just completely outside. So you're sort of objective, what we call objective in that sense. However, as it says there, they're specialists. They're specialists in the area. So they do know about the subject matter. So they are aware of the program content. You know, they're privy to, you know, and they're aware of what the program is trying to achieve. And this is often why like government agencies ask universities to do evaluations, right? So like in UPM, in our Jabatan, we do a lot of program evaluations for outside agencies because they see us as both having sort of a specialized knowledge in that area, but also being objective, being external, etc. Okay, so universities are a really good example of this as external evaluators. Now, some of the, I'll just do this quickly because it's time for our break, but some of the pros and cons, okay, is that yes, as external evaluators, we can be very objective and we can assess critical issues. Not only critical issues, but sensitive issues. Like, and you know, like the reference was made by, I guess it was Shazwani, she talked about misinformation, and then Farhana, conflicting opinions. So these can become sensitive issues between members of the, you know, of the staff or whoever's delivering the program. An external evaluator doesn't have to get involved in all that sensitive stuff, right? So they can sort of rise above all that, you know, and they can just focus on what's being done, the quality of the program, etc. So that's definitely an advantage, Disadvantage, sometimes they give extreme results. You know, maybe they want to show that they're really specialists and, you know, so they overemphasize certain things, you know, and so they give sort of extreme results. Since they're not experiencing the practical side of the program, sometimes they're detached a little bit from the program and what the program is trying to achieve because they weren't involved in it at all. So they don't really see what went into the program, you know, the investment that was made in the program, the inputs. And so sometimes they're a little bit detached from the outcome, right? And that can affect the way that they evaluate, you know. Like the internal people, they know all the effort that was made, the investment that was made. You know, they saw the participants and how much they changed over the course of the program and stuff like that. The external that comes in at the end of the program, they don't see all that, right? So they're sort of detached from it. So they may not appreciate certain things about the program, okay? Oftentimes the externals are dependent only on documents. You know, again, since they were not involved in the process evaluation, they don't see that aspect of it. So they just look at the documents, what happened at the end, you know, or they have some kind of written report about what happened, but they didn't actually observe it. Okay, so again, they're maybe not getting the full information. Okay, and then also they're expensive. You know, if you hire consultants to do, I mean, we're a university, we're not that expensive because we're part of government. We're actually public servants. But if you hire outside consultants, they usually are very costly. So if it's just like a small community organization or an NGO doing an evaluation, they may not have the funds that cukup, you know, their funds to do the evaluation, to hire external people. Okay, so there's advantages and disadvantages to both internal and external evaluators. Okay, so you want to maximize, you try to maximize the pros, the advantages of both. Okay, but it is good to have both. It is good to have an internal evaluative component. You know, you want to hear from staff, you want to hear from participants, you want them involved in the evaluation to some degree, but then you also want an external objective view of the program as well. So often there's going to be a mix. They'll kind of try and involve both. Okay, so I think that's it for the evaluation segment. Yep, that's it. Any questions before we take a break? Was that clear about the internal and external evaluators and the pros and cons? Okay.
Clear, Prof. Clear.
Okay. All right.
Yes, Prof. Clear.
All right. Thank you. So let's just have a short break, take 10 minutes and stretch and get away from the screens. We'll come back at 12:35. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. Everyone back? Ready to go? Yes, Prof. Thank you, Farhana. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do our in-class exercise. So we're going to do, as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, this is a brief case study. And I want us to apply what we just discussed and in the previous class as well on evaluation. So I want you to look at, I'm going to break you up into small groups. We'll do 6 groups again, like usual. Actually, no, today we'll just do 5 because we got only 27. So I'll break you up into 5 groups, and then I want you to go back, refer back to the questions that I've posed in Blast. Hold on a sec. Refer back to the questions in Blast. Okay. You can also download straight from there as well. Just click on the link and it should download to. You can download the case study. Okay. And using the 4 steps of evaluation that we discussed today, think about these 4 questions. Okay. So focus of the evaluation. So what aspects of the program as it's described in the case study will you evaluate and why? Okay. So again, what are you going to evaluate? Thinking about it from the very beginning. What outcomes are you going to look at? Are you going to focus on for your evaluation? And then what kind of data will you collect and from whom? Okay. So based on the focus of the evaluation, what kind of data will you collect to do it? How will you analyze the data? What kind of conclusions will you try to draw? Okay. So what are you going to try to determine about the program from the evaluation? Okay, and then last, how will you report your findings? Okay, so who should receive the information about the evaluation? Which stakeholders? Okay, and how will you share the information? Okay, so if each group could just prepare a short presentation like last time, like previous classes, the way we did it. You guys did a really nice job with that. So this one I'll give, let's take about a half an hour. I'll give you 30 minutes. I don't think you're gonna need 30 minutes, honestly. I think you can do it probably in about 20 minutes, but because I'm also asking you to do the short presentation, I'll give you a bit of time to write it up. So, so I'll put you in small groups, and just when you're done, just come back to the main group, okay? And then I'll know that you're finished, and we can just proceed whenever you're ready, okay? But if not, I will call you all back after 30 minutes if you're not back in yet, okay? All right, is that clear?
Yes,
Clear,
Prof.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to send you all off now into your rooms. So just look for the link, yeah? Okay, there it goes. Leanna and Shazwani, are you guys having problems? Are there connection problems or something? Maybe you stepped away from your computers. Oh,
Prof, sorry, tadi agak disconnected.
oh, okay, it's okay. Nabila. So do you remember which room you were in, Nabila?
No.
All right, I'll just send you off. It's okay, sorry. Okay, you should get it now. Leanna, are you there, Leanna? Okay, I see room 4 is done. Welcome back, room 4. So I'll just wait, just give the others another like 30 seconds and I'll bring them back in.
Okay.
Okay, room 3 coming back. So room 4, room 3, the 3 is still going. I'm going to close the rooms in another 30 seconds. So. Okay. So I've closed the room, so they should be coming back in a minute. And then we can start. Can group 4, can you guys present first? Since you were the first to finish, we'll let you guys do your sharing first.
Okay.
I think you can go ahead and start. Okay, group 4.
Okay. So I represent, I think it's for our discussion opinion. Okay, so first question is that what aspect of the program or outcomes will you evaluate and why? So as we know, this program focus on the reduce the poverty in Indonesia. So the outcome is to ensure that the community have a good social well-being by improve the access to water and sanitation. And then outcomes that we evaluate is to evaluate the use of infrastructure, whether it was useful or not. And then evaluate on the functions on providing the facility in public service delivery during the program that will be implemented. And then to evaluate on how the project can reduce the flooding so that they can improve if there is any mistake. So that is why evaluates are important for this program. And then the data collections is that what kind of data that will be collected is that the data will be collected is number of population that affected by the flooded, and also data from the ABD or citizen by using qualitative interview. Interview face-to-face. And then for the next question is how will you analyze your data and what kind of conclusion will you try to draw? So how to analyze data that by asking for feedback in the community whether they feel the facility that we provided is useful. And then we'll doing a meeting with the project teams and also the representative community. So to know if there any difficult during the implementation. And then analyze the data by actively make the participant to involve to share the idea and thought, so there will no any discrimination. Okay, so for the next question, I will pass to my group.
So for this part, it's about who should receive the information about the evaluation and which stakeholders, how will to share the information. It's about, first of all, we should tell the families benefit from the ABD, the Asian Bank development of the evaluation results. And everyone has the right to know the evaluation result of their own areas. And secondly, they should be disclosed to the residents of the slum in Batuat district of the Makassar city and in the Bioma area. For the second is about the government and the Asian Bank development also have the right to know the evaluation result of the investment area. And for income residents, a consummate or local medium can be used to convey the assessment result to residents. And for the government agency and the investment institution, certain academic reports and or the date can be used to explain the actual situation in the regions they help. So I think this is for our group 4.
Great. Okay, well done, group 4. Can you just go to your second slide, the data collection slide? Okay. So your first bullet there, what data will you collect on the, so how does that first bullet help you to evaluate the effectiveness of the program?
I think I evaluate by doing a feedback. So we ask the citizen by using a qualitative interview or questionnaire. But I think that qualitative is more interact with them.
For the first one there, the data, the numbers of population affected by the floods?
Yes.
Okay, so why would you do an interview to ask people about, or why would you do an interview just to get the number of population affected by the floods?
So by doing the evaluation, we can know how many person that affected by the flooded and what they want. to improve their well-being.
Okay, so that would be the second bullet, yeah. So the first bullet, okay, so you're referring more to the second bullet, I think. Yeah, to find out how the program or how the program has helped them. Yeah, so the first one is just to find out after the program has been done, how many people are still affected? Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're saying, the first one?
Yes, I think it can make do before and also after.
Oh, I see. Okay, so this is the situational analysis, the first one. And the second one is the, okay. I got it. Okay, all right. Thank you, group 4. Nicely done.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Okay. I think the second group in was group 3. Would group 3 like to present now?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, Jesse, go ahead.
Okay, so for the first step, I would like to welcome my group member, Yan Sing, for the first step.
Yes, for the first step, it's focused on the evaluation. The aspects and outcomes is availability of solid water waste management, drainage gauge system, water supply, road conditions, security, financial support, is such as the to benefit the transportation and water facility to the residents in the BIMA. And the second one is to assess the effectiveness of neighborhoods upgrading and the shelter program. It calls NUSP program. And the last one is about to improve the well-being and the living conditions of the residents. It's about the first evaluation.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so for the second step, regarding the data collection, what kind of data will you collect and from whom? Okay, we will doing the qualitative data collections. For example, like interview, and we interview because we want to observe what are the conditions of the residents, and also may distribute some survey or questionnaire form. Okay, and from whom we will like to collect the data from the resident itself.
Okay.
So for step 3 is the analysis and judgment. So we will analyze in terms of the aspect that we have mentioned just now. So we'll measure whether, analyze whether the residents, they receive accessibility to the supports provided by the government, such as the availability of solid waste management, drainage system, water supply, road conditions, security, and financial support. So we will analyze the effectiveness of each aspect of the program, and also the efficiency of the program, such as whether the program is implemented as the time that we have prepared, and also whether the programs are going on as what we have planned before. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And as for the last step, who should receive the information about the evaluation, the funders, which is the ADB, Asian Development Bank, as they are the one who provide funds for the program. And then the government, specifically Ministry of Public Works and Housing. And then Bima Mayor, the residents of Bima City and Makassar. And how the information we share is through reports and bulletins, so that they know where are the funds have been channeled to, and they know what are the benefits, the effectiveness of the program. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you again go back to step 2? Thank you, group 3. So yeah, so data collection, the purpose of questions 1 and 2 are really to show connection between your goals of evaluation, what you plan to evaluate, and then the data you plan to collect to evaluate those goals. So these two steps should be very closely linked. Okay, so just be aware that when you do for your assignment 3s, when you do your program proposals, if that evaluation component, make sure there's a connection between what you plan to evaluate in terms of those program objectives and then this part. So this part you may want to be a bit more specific in terms of how each objective that you put out in step 1 is going to be addressed by using these different types of data collection. So you should say, okay, interviews of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to discover or to determine, objective 1 or whatever the objective is, survey on, knowledge acquisition to determine, how much knowledge has been achieved. Okay, so you need to be a bit more specific. I know I didn't give you much time, so don't worry about it for this particular activity, but those two need to be very closely connected. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, Prof.
Okay. All right. Thanks, group 3. Good job.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I don't know who came in next after that. So group 1, 2, or 5, who'd like to go next? Let's have group 1, just for time's sake. Group 1, do you want to present? I should say room 1. Room 1, anyone?
Yes, bro.
Room 1, would you like to present?
I think can, bro. Boleh,
Okay.
boleh, sure. Oh. Sekejap ya, bro. Saya share screen sekejap.
Go ahead. Tak apa.
Alright. Alright. So okay. Okay. Can you guys see the slides?
Yep, we can see the slide.
Okay. Wait for a minute. I just want to record it to. Okay, right. Okay. Hello, testing. Boleh dengar kan?
Oh yeah.
Okay, right. Okay. Okay, so Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to all and to Prof. Latif and also my friends. So basically, we are from group 1. So this group consists of me, myself, Farahin, and then we also have Shaza Husna and also Nur Azah. So let's go to the next slide. The first slide will be presented by, I think by Shaza, yes. Shaza, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Hadi. So for the first question that focus of the evaluation, what aspect of the program or outcome will you evaluate and why? The first one that I will evaluate for the program is about objective of the program. Because the program planning will follow the objective that we plan. The objective of the program, we must identify the content, input, process, and product. Next, all the program planning must align with objective of the program. For example, in the case study, the main objective of the case study is the project focus on supporting the government goals and achieving its inclusive growth by upgrading infrastructure, proper community, and improving their access to clean water and sanitation. For the second is about identify the criteria and indicator to be used in the programs. that to make sure all the various strengths and weaknesses of the program. In the case study that we can see is all about budget, budget of build a drain, road. Second one is about participations of the volunteer to the programs volunteering. The third one is facilities that the community have. The fourth one is about infrastructure, and the last one is about resources. So for the next focus that I will focus for the case study is about the evaluator. As we know that the evaluator will help us to giving a feedback for our programs. For example, we have a type of evaluator which is internal and external evaluator. For the case study, for the internal is the panel itself and the committee that involved in the program. For the external, the people outside the program. In the case study, we can see that public-private partnership and local government are involved in the program. So the last one is about observations. We do observations before, during, and after program that to ensure the program has to achieve the objective. This process, maybe we can do a feedback form that we take from the community and the players. So that's all for me. Which is Farah.
Guy, sorry for the just now. I think my laptop
not working.
Yeah,
it was a bit hard to hear her. I couldn't really hear her that well. It's okay. If you're having a problem with it, we can just go to the next group. Oh, you're gonna do it now. Okay.
I think
No, this is Shaza's screen now.
oh, share the screen. Okay, Shaza share. All right. Prof, sorry for the inconvenience just now. I think
No
my
problem.
laptop.
Tapa.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so next is the data collection. So we maybe we will do the survey, face-to-face service or an observation. So we will collect the data from the eligible low-income family communities. Maybe the head of the household will be the representative for us to collect the data. And based on from the Shaza objective of the evaluation, maybe we can also collect data from the planner or the volunteers to make sure that the budget, facilities, and resources are made. Okay, that's all. Okay, I'll pass to Azza.
So for the step 3, which is analysis and or adjustments, so how will you analyze your data? What kind of conclusions will you try to draw? First, we're using the observation and survey among community so that we can get data for the resources and that area that community live in Indonesia. And then we need to know the problem that occur in that area, that we can also use the available resources to overcome the problem. So the second is we using the community engagement approach, that we need to encourage the community to give a support to achieve the objective so that we can also gain the trust among the community, will help to upgrading the infrastructure, especially in the poor community in Indonesia. Then lastly is we need to cooperate with the government in words to improving their access in clear water and sanitation in that area. Then lastly, the third is doing a meeting to analyze the data collection in the context to improvements. So I will pass to Hadi.
All right, thank you, Azza. So I will be explaining about some detail regarding to the report findings or the how we are going to report the finding of the evaluation. So basically, as we all know, every participant has a right to know the evaluation part, right? So basically, for the evaluation, we focus on giving maybe the findings to basically the one who give fund, which is Asian Development Bank, ADB, and because of it, we will also use we need also what you call it? We also need to use various form of reports to tell everyone about the evaluation and results. So maybe from this part of it, we can use like where we can see from the resource that the proactive share with us, which is the article. So basically, we can use that kind of what you call it, application or software, or maybe medium like the article, or maybe what you call it, article or halaman berita kan, like that. So basically, as we all know, the project is basically focused on the slum upgrading that will help many households, which is approximately 670,000 households, by giving improved access to water and sanitation. Yeah. So basically, from the report finding, we will try to, actually there are some step or some method that we can use to do this step, the step 4. So basically, for our group, we use the hierarchical criteria model, because what? Because some point of it, it will give details about the process, about the evolution regarding to the program that ADB funded. So basically, for the first part is the input. So all physical and non-physical resources, including resource and participant, will be jotted down by the person in charge, and then the total resources used. This is the thing that must be used as indicator. Total resources used, maintenance of the resources, skills of participant using resources. Basically, this focus on the pupil who is living in Makassar, or the Bima, yes. So for example, the construction, the example of the resources that have been given to the Bima society is that construction of more than 4 kilometers of trains to reduce flooding, and 3.5 kilometers of neighborhood roads. They were also given solid waste management facilities. Yeah,
Okay, great. Oh, we have another slide. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so basically to the next slide, which is the activity. So before this, we focus on the on the input. So now we focus on the activity itself. So basically, for the activity, we need to evaluate all activities at all stage. Basically, we need to focus on the initiation, implementation, and evaluation. So for this part, calendar of activities are used. Basically, the calendar that being used by the participant and by the developer who who give the improvement at the place. So, and then the participation. So we need, so as the person in charge at the time, so they need to check the total involvement. So from this, they also need to know the continuity. Is it continuous or seasonal? From this point of view, the person in charge can report the finding basically in detail, right? Because they know which participant who joined the program, and they know is it continuous or seasonal, and then the reaction. So as a person in charge during that time, basically maybe someone who is at the time, so they need to gain response and acceptance from people. This is so that they can know the reaction from the people there. To the next slide, Cesar. Okay, so alright, so let's go to the basically last slide, which is the cognitive and affective change. So basically for this part, the person in charge, they need to focus on the interest, value, and attitudinal changes that given by the what you call it, the participant there. Basically the 670,000 people there. So other than that, the report also must have the skill changes point, whereby because we all know that the skill is hard to keep up, so we need to check up if the people there, whether the skills or whether the the skill given by the uh, developer is kept, is developed well there. And then the final outcome is the achievement of the objective. It is whether the objective is being achieved or not. Yeah, I think that's all for my part, Prof. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Group 1. Nicely done. You went above and beyond what I asked for in the in those 4 questions that I posed. Yeah, it's important that if you use that, like for example, that the hierarchical model that you just presented, there may be elements in there that don't apply really to what you're trying to achieve in that program. So you just have to look to see whether it's the right model. You know, for this kind of because this case study is so brief, you probably don't have enough information actually to apply the full model. So you could just use a simplified, you know, just the four parts that I spoke about earlier in the class. But it was a nice effort. It was a good effort. So congratulations. All right, we're going to stop there for this week. We'll continue next class. We'll start with the last 2 presentations. We'll let the 2 groups that didn't present today, we'll let you guys start next week. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so groups, what is it? We didn't present 2 and 5, right? Okay, so just save your presentations and then we'll just start the class next week with you guys. Okay?
Really, Prof.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. And we'll continue this next week.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Prof.
Assalamualaikum. Have a good
Waalaikumsalam.
week.
Waalaikumsalam, Prof.
Bye.